If you are playing Pathogenic and want to progress a bit faster, I have selected some synergies that worked well for me. It is nothing miraculous, but these are combinations that help a lot once you start understanding how the game fits the upgrades together. I am Matthew, and the video is about to begin. This combination is exactly the type of thing that makes you feel broken in a good way in Pathogenic. The Ballistic Flagellum is already strong on its own. Firing projectiles backward while running turns you into a moving damage machine. But when you pair that with mutations that explode on dodge and also reduce the dodge cooldown, the game shifts to another level. You stop merely surviving and start dominating the space, turning every dodge into a weapon. Before continuing the video, a quick tip for anyone thinking about buying a Bethesda game. Our partner Instant Gaming is running a special Bethesda anniversary campaign with discounts of up to 75% on several games in the franchise, including titles like Fallout, Doom, and The Elder Scrolls. And the best part, Instant Gaming is not a marketplace, so you buy directly from the store with much more security. The promotion runs until August 13th at 7 p.m., so it's definitely worth checking out. If you're going to pick up any Bethesda games, use my affiliate link in the description. You don't pay anything extra, and you directly support the channel. Now, let's get back to the video. What I like most about this synergy is how it encourages you to play aggressively and consistently. Instead of backing away and hiding, you learn to trust movement. The more you run and dodge, the more explosions happen around you, and the more projectiles the Flagellum fires. In tight areas where the instinct would be to shrink back, this build turns into a damage and area hurricane, clearing entire rooms just by positioning and moving the right way. Another point that makes all the difference is the feeling of invulnerability you build by stacking dodge cooldown reductions. When the dodge reload time is almost zero, you start having nearly continuous invincibility windows. And that completely changes how you read enemy attack patterns. Instead of fearing bullets, you start using them as an opportunity. Each wave of projectiles becomes a chance to jump into the middle of the action, blow everything up while dodging, and walk away unharmed, as if the game were playing in your favor. This is one of the most consistent combinations you can build in Pathogenic precisely because it does not rely on extreme luck. It relies on understanding the game's rhythm and using movement as your main weapon. If you enjoy builds that reward aggressiveness, smart positioning, and that pleasant feeling of, I am in total control of the screen, Ballistic Flagellum plus Dodge Explosion is, without a doubt, one of the most reliable and fun paths to follow. This is, without exaggeration, one of the builds that made me feel cheating in a legitimate way. The Chromatic lens already grabs attention just by its visuals, that colorful laser cutting across the screen. But when you start stacking homing or bounce modifiers, it stops being just pretty and turns into a machine that melts everything that moves. It is the kind of combination that makes you understand why certain items are legendary. Alone, they are already strong, but in the right hands, they become absurd. The secret lies in how the laser behaves when it gains homing or bounce. With homing, it simply does not miss. It sticks to the target as if it had GPS, which is perfect for bosses that never stop teleporting or changing patterns. With bounce, the laser becomes a nightmare in enclosed areas, ricocheting off walls and hitting multiple enemies at the same time. In both cases, you turn a directional attack into a constant damage field, and that is when the magic starts to happen. But what truly elevates this build to the broken level is heavy investment in overcharge. This is the attribute that makes the laser scale in an absurd way, turning every second of continuous damage into a true health bar melt. Against the main organ bosses, which normally require patience and positioning, this combination allows you to stand practically still in the corner of the screen, aiming and watching the boss's health disappear like butter in the microwave. The coolest part is that this is not just theory. There are documented runs using this exact formula, and they show how truly consistent this synergy is. If you like the idea of putting together a build that makes you feel in total control, with damage so high that bosses seem in a hurry to die, Chromatic lens plus homing, slant, bounce plus full focus on overcharge is one of the most satisfying and visually incredible paths you can follow in Pathogenic. By combining extreme attack speed with vortex generators, you create a domino effect of screen control that practically plays itself. At the beginning, the secret is to prioritize ultra-fast firing weapons, like the so-called green projectile applicator you mentioned, and fit them into slots that receive attack speed buffs and vortex generation. Every shot turns into a small black hole pulling enemies in. And with dozens of projectiles per second, the screen fills with overlapping vortices, which not only causes damage, but also groups the mobs together for your other organelles to explode everything at once. As you progress, it is worth reinforcing this foundation with well-positioned mitochondria to keep overcharge active, and with traits that increase fire rate or the duration/strength of the vortices. In the Organelle Editor tab, try rotating and repositioning the pieces. Sometimes, moving a single mitochondria makes all the difference for the buff network to reach your rapid-fire weapons and consistently potentiate the Vortex effect. This is a classic synergy precisely because it scales very well. The more you invest in attack speed and Vortex trigger multipliers, the more the game turns into controlled chaos in your favor. If you want, I can help you put together an ideal build skeleton, which organelles to look for, in what order, and how to position them in the editor, thinking about long runs and the final boss. I really like this synergy because it completely changes the pace of the match. Instead of shooting non-stop, you start playing in a more calculated way. You wait for the right moment, position the bomb launcher, and fire an explosion capable of wiping out multiple enemies at once. The idea fits very well with slow weapons, like bombs and mortars, because they are already designed to deal heavy damage in few attacks. The main component is the modules or mutations that increase damage after a few seconds without attacking. The attack preparation effect, for example, makes the first attack after 3 seconds without firing deal more damage. There are also variations that reach approximately 340%, depending on rarity and the number of stacks. This combination is mentioned by players as one of the strongest ways to use bomb launchers in Pathogenic. In practice, I would try to build around few shots, but very powerful ones. You can wait for the reload, observe enemy movement, and drop the bomb when several are grouped together or when an elite enemy enters a vulnerable position. It is also worth organizing the organelles carefully, because traits depend heavily on position and connections between pieces. A small change in the editor can activate multiple bonuses at once. The weak point is that this strategy requires calmness and good defense. If you get cornered or need to shoot constantly to survive, part of the preparation bonus loses value. Therefore, I would combine this build with control effects, area explosions, lasers on hit, or some source of mobility. This way, you buy time to prepare the next shot and turn each bomb into a true decisive blow. The Mitotic Nidus does not just create a clone, it makes that minion use the weapons connected directly to it, allowing you to duplicate your offensive pressure without depending exclusively on your main pathogen. This feature is confirmed by the developer himself in the Update 4 description. In practice, I would set up the Mitotic Nidus as the center of a swarm build, connecting automatic or high-impact weapons to it. Thus, while you move, dodge attacks, and look for a safe position, the clone keeps firing on its own, and with multiple minions on the field, the screen begins to fill with overlapping attacks. It is precisely this kind of modular construction, based on connections between organelles, that makes minion builds become so strong. The most important thing is not to treat the clone merely as a shield to absorb damage. If you connect truly good weapons to the Mitotic Nidus, each copy begins to contribute to eliminating enemies, greatly accelerating room clearing and making larger waves easier. I would also combine this idea with organelles or upgrades that increase the quantity, duration, damage, or respawn speed of minions, elements frequently associated with the minion swarm archetype. To me, this tip gets even better when you accept playing more indirectly. Instead of trying to deal all the damage personally, you build the infrastructure and let your clones do the work. Just be careful not to spread weapons too thin across the pathogen structure. Prioritize weaponry directly connected to the Mitotic Nidus, and protect that region of the build. If you find a heavier minion organelle, like the Apex Nidus, it can complement the swarm very well, creating a tough frontline while weapon-equipped clones do the offensive work. This Ruptosome plus lethal fragmentation synergy is exactly the kind of build that turns tight rooms into total elimination zones in Pathogenic. Every shot turns into a micro-grenade that bursts into shrapnel upon hitting macrophages or lymphocytes, spreading damage in an area and clearing whole groups almost instantly. The trick is to connect high-cadence projectile weapons or very strong single-shot weapons directly to the Ruptosome, ensuring that each impact generates a lethal shrapnel explosion. In narrow corridors or rooms full of clustered enemies, this creates a domino effect. You focus on a target, the projectile explodes into fragments, and those shards hit others around, often killing them or leaving them so debilitated that your other organelles finish the rest. To scale this build, it is worth reinforcing with traits that increase explosion damage, piercing or even damage multipliers in confined areas, as well as positioning mitochondria so that overcharge feeds both the Ruptosome and the connected weapons. In the organelle editor, test different layouts. Sometimes, moving a piece makes a mitochondria's buff reach both the Ruptosome and the main weapon, which drastically raises fragmentation efficiency on every shot. This is a classic synergy precisely because it solves the biggest bottleneck of many runs, clearing crowded rooms without getting stuck in the middle of chaos. If you want, I can help you design an ideal build map, which organelles to prioritize, in what order to get them, and how to position them in the editor, thinking about maximizing the fragmentation effect of the Ruptosome all the way to the final boss. Whenever you find a modifier, I would check first if it has the infusible property, as this allows you to place it inside the chain and make the bonus reach the main weapon. Players also highlight that long infuser chains are among the most consistent ways to build extremely powerful setups. The logic is simple, but the result can be absurd. One infuser increases damage, the next one receives that effect and applies another bonus, and so on, all the way to the weapon at the end of the connection. Instead of having several loose modifiers, you create a sequence where each piece potentiates the previous one. It is like setting up a damage production line, where the final shot comes out much stronger than it would with the same components scattered throughout the organism. I would pay close attention to order and connections, because it is not enough to just collect many infusers. You need to confirm that the arrows are truly connected and that the path starts from the correct modifiers until it reaches the weapon. A broken link can waste a good part of the build's potential. The organelle editor itself is fundamental in this process, since the position of the pieces determines which effects will be transmitted. In my opinion, this is the best tip for anyone who wants to progress quickly and understand why some builds seem simply broken. I would prioritize extra slots and compatible infusers before looking for a second weapon, keeping a main weapon at the end of the chain and using the other components to amplify it. When you find a long sequence of infusible infusers and manage to connect it correctly, each reward starts to have a much greater impact on final damage. Instead of treating repeated legendary organelles as useless items, I would start saving them thinking about the next power leap. The fusion system allows you to combine two identical organelles to create a copy of higher rarity, so this recycling can turn leftovers into a truly decisive piece. The big trick is to reserve this resource for moments when the run is already well underway, especially after defeating a boss or when you have accumulated enough colors to perform the fusion. In my opinion, spending a repeated legendary immediately can be a waste, because you might find another identical one later on and manage to reach the mythic version. This planning is what turns a good build into a build that truly skyrockets at the end of the route. A mythic organelle is not just for making numbers bigger, it can alter the match's rhythm with much higher attributes and special effects. This is particularly strong when the organelle is already at the center of your strategy, like a main weapon, a minion core, or a piece responsible for triggering a chain of effects. Pathogenic's own structure encourages this gradual evolution of organelles during the run, while permanent upgrades remain separated in the plasmid system. I would use this tip with a simple rule. Do not sacrifice an important legendary just because a duplicate appeared. First, check if that fusion truly strengthens the heart of your build. If both pieces are from the same organelle and the effects match what you are using, transforming into Mythic can be the biggest power spike of the run. Exactly that power increase capable of making the final rooms feel much more manageable. Having more space to fit pieces sounds great on paper, but increasing your pathogen's mass too much turns any tight heart or lung corridor into a death trap. The game uses soft body physics, meaning your body is a network of nodes and springs that deforms, stretches, and collides with real weight. When you grow too big, it becomes harder to dodge projectiles, get through lung air currents, and squeeze into crevices without getting stuck. In dense rooms like the heart, where enemy spawn is at a maximum and hazards are tighter, a big body becomes an easy target and suffers even more from knockback and shoves. Therefore, it is only worth switching to larger forms if the new sockets, the slots where you fit organelles, are pointing in the right attack direction, and if you maintain enough mobility to maneuver. In the organelle editor, tab, test more compact layouts, prioritize extended dodge flagella, and, if you need to grow, do it in a targeted way. Preserve a shape that allows rapid dodging, keep the center of mass controlled, and avoid wings that bang into everything. In the end, this is a strategic decision. Growing brings more slots and synergy potential, but charges a high price in mobility and safety in the hardest organs. If you want, I can help you plan an ideal body evolution tree, thinking about which forms to get, at what time, and how to position organelles to have useful sockets without turning into a giant target in the heart and lungs. This mind synergy is one of the ones I enjoy the most, because it turns the battlefield into a giant trap. You start dropping mines across the scenery, and instead of relying solely on initial damage, look for upgrades that make each mine grow, accumulate power, or become more dangerous while active. The feeling is excellent. Enemies keep advancing without realizing they are entering a completely prepared area ready to explode. The electricity effect is what takes this build from good against groups to something truly absurd. When the mines are close together, lightning can chain between them and hit multiple enemies at the same time. Afterwards, any electric damage bonus increases this chain reaction even further. The game has examples of builds focused on electricity and also highlights that explosive attacks with chaining effects are especially useful against rooms full of enemies. I consider homing almost mandatory when it appears in this strategy, because it greatly reduces the problem of relying on perfect positioning. Even if some mines or discharges do not hit the exact target you wanted, the search effect helps direct damage to the nearest enemies. Still, I would not completely abandon mobility. The ideal is to scatter mines while circulating through the arena, luring enemies into the electric network. The main precaution is not to invest only in damage and forget survival. This build needs time for mines to grow and space for electrical connections to work, so movement speed, dodging, or some control effect makes a huge difference. When the weapon, mine growth, electricity, and homing all fit together, you practically turn each room into a restricted zone and manage to clear the screen without needing to aim at each individual enemy.